Okay, House of the Dragon Season 3, Episode 7. There's some bad, there's some good, and then there's just some outright, what in the are we even doing weird moments. This whole thing is kind of a fun, nonsensical mess. Let's just blend this all together here and try to get into it. And since this show keeps shoving this character in our face, why not I do the same thing here? So first up, let's go Mysaria. This is becoming the least emotionally compelling or otherwise interesting character in the whole series, and House of the Dragon insists on putting her on the screen. I thought she was the master of whispers, but really, unlike a character such as Varys in Game of Thrones, her only purpose is to divide Rhaenyra and Daemon. Maybe it's intentional, maybe it's interesting in theory, but in execution, there's no longer anything mysterious or scheming about Mysaria compared to what we seemed to be promised in Season 1. One of her main scenes in this episode is to be called out for being a Targaryen groupie by her old friend and brothel keeper Sylvie. Honestly, I lost interest in this scene immediately. I guess Sylvie is here to basically be all like, hey Mysaria, don't forget where you came from, and don't forget about the small people, you're still just a whore, etc. It lacks impact because the audience has to really use their imagination to pretend that Mysaria has even had any influence on the story anymore. Accusing her of being a sellout or whatever might work, but the characterization of Mysaria has been so thin that I don't even know if what Sylvie is saying fits or not. This character, this scene just feels like a waste of time when we could focus on characters that actually offer compelling conflict to the story. But don't worry, Mysaria shows up back here when we get into the weird aspect of this episode. So real quick, let's flip over here to Adam and Baela. Awkward, not exactly weird, but awkward. Adam is trying to ask Baela to the prom, and she thinks he's actually trying to ask her to go to the prom with his brother Alan. You know, should be a gut punch to Adam. Now for me, I was like, okay, cool. These seemingly forced out of nowhere scenes Baela had with Alan in episode 6 and a more believable scene she had with Adam in episode 5 is going to have a little bit of payoff here. And I like awkward. But no, they're interrupted when they see the stupid idea to replace Nettles and Sheepstealer flying around in the background. So they go and tell Rhaenyra so we can have one of the most forced and mindless dragon battles in the entire show. Now I say that, but there are parts of that I actually kinda liked, even if it's, kinda ridiculous. So it's actually kinda cool to see Daemon try to have a heart-to-heart with his daughter, and for a split second, the idea to replace Nettles from the book with Rhaena seemed like it could really go somewhere. The prospect of them both hunting Vhagar to earn Rhaena favor with Rhaenyra actually could have helped sell the idea of replacing Nettles. You could imagine they hunt Vhagar to serve Rhaenyra, but once Rhaenyra learns Daemon is flying around with the person who rides Sheepstealer, she then sees it as a betrayal. A misunderstanding, and this show has these characters make a lot of misunderstandings since season 1, so I thought for sure that's where this was going, and I wouldn't hate that necessarily. Instead, Rhaenyra and Adam of Hall show up, and this whole standoff just turns into a disaster. So before anyone can actually digest what is going on, Rhaenyra and everyone just kinda loses control of their dragons. Like, we get it, Ryan Condal, humans can't control their dragons. This is very well established, please stop hitting us over the head with this idea. Now look, this is a CGI battle between the dragons, but I like that it stayed on the ground. It really helps maintain any emotional weight, and it offers some scale as you can contrast the size of these monsters compared to humans. But the one thing that actually got me emotionally invested here is that I don't want any of the dragons to actually get hurt. And what really started worrying me is that they were going to kill off Sheepstealer, and that would have been terrible because it feels so empty. I still don't like that Rhaena and Sheepstealer are separated, because if this is what we're replacing the Nettles plot with, and it seems that part of the story has now concluded, I'd feel really ripped off. And I really feel like this should have been cut all together and never even introduced. But my hope is that even though Sheepstealer was wounded, he didn't die. So perhaps they have something for him in the future. And the book purist in me thinks that's stupid, but this show already bailed on the book, and for whatever this show is now, I think it'd be pretty interesting to see if they have him come back into the story. I don't know, maybe he follows Rhaena back to King's Landing, and that could be a really fun and disastrous situation. But if they bring him back and he impacts one of the more anticipated moments from the book, the fans of the source material will be insufferable, and I'll probably be one of them. So I want to throw something in here that I genuinely liked for some balance, because obviously the ending of this video is going to be on the weird sexually themed scenes in this episode, and I have really nothing nice to say when we get to that point. So let's go with Helaena. This episode actually starts with her dream. It's brief and it just shows the sun shining on her face, almost to suggest that brighter days may be possible. Now you gotta notice they're keeping this pale white horse in the shot. The only idea that makes sense is for that to symbolize some Christian beliefs or mythology that a white horse represents death or maybe even the Holy Spirit. However, there's various conversations about this. I'm definitely not going to be the one qualified to have that with you here. So my only thing here is if we establish more prominent in-world beliefs and assign different symbols, and one could be a white horse, I think that would be subtle enough, but also consistent with the show's own world building. And if the white horse is to foreshadow Helena's death or something else, a more casual audience wouldn't miss that symbolism. Because otherwise, if the audience doesn't study mythology or religion, they wouldn't understand what the white horse means, assuming there is symbolism behind the white horse, and I think that there is, because it does reappear later. Now, Helaena and Rhaenyra finally talk, and it's kind of uncomfortable and feels foreign because we haven't actually seen Rhaenyra interact with any of her siblings. But I do like how we finally get some explanation why Helaena and her dragon are really just not participants in this war, and why they're not really seen together with Helaena riding Dreamfire. And it's because Helaena can't handle that connection. It's like a sensory overload, because with her ability, it's just too much. Now, her second vision might be the most telling hint that we've gotten about where this character is at and where she's heading. First, we see her baby taken away. And I think this one is the most obvious to suggest that if she has her baby, he will be taken from her and used as a tool for political purposes. Or worse, he may be killed. Now, I heard someone say that maybe this part was a flashback and that was Kristen Cole who took the baby. I don't think so. Let me know if you think I'm wrong here, but I'm pretty sure this is just a vision of one of Rhaenyra's Queensguards taking the baby. Now, the next part of her dream is a vision with a riot of people running at her in the dragon pit as she sits atop Dreamfire and she screams Dracarys. But don't forget that she just told Rhaenyra earlier that being on Dreamfire was too overwhelming, and I think this is important for all of her visions. I think she's being provided different outcomes, and I like this because that might suggest that her visions or prophecy isn't necessarily predetermined and she may have some agency. However, this might mean that she has only a handful of options and none of them are good. You can see in the next vision, her and her children somehow made it out and she's raising her chickens. Mind you, this is probably both Jaehaera and Jaehaerys, the latter being her son who was killed in season 2, but we don't know for sure. Maybe it is her unborn son, but they both do look like they're the same age, so I'm not sure. But very important again is that symbol of the white horse, suggesting maybe death, and the sun ultimately is eclipsed and here comes the winter coming with the darkness. So I see all three of these visions to represent alternative paths forward, none of which have a happy ending, and it leaves me with a dreadful anticipation for Helena's character moving forward, but I think it's been well established here with these visions. Now, I did enjoy the Ormond and Corlys scene, but honestly, I don't feel like I got a lot of story out of it, and maybe it's the book reader in me. I really hate that Corlys is in Tumbleton when he had nothing to do with this in the book, but maybe it goes somewhere good, and if it does, maybe I'll revisit this scene in the future. But we do see what appears to be Corlys' finger get shipped to Alan, so I'm not saying it doesn't matter. It could have significant implications on the Velaryon forces being provoked out of King's Landing, and that could have huge implications. But we'll go over that when we cover the season 3 finale. Also, we get a bit more Daeron and Gwaine here, and I think this really does characterize Daeron as someone who is truly just stuck in this scenario with very little control, but more like a person who could seize control and doesn't quite recognize their own authority yet. I do enjoy his contemplation of leaving his men behind, but that he can't flee. He's obligated to these men. He has that honor about him. And more interestingly, he suggests that Rhaenyra can keep the crown. And this indicates to me that this is a Targaryen with no desire to wield power over anyone, which would likely make him the best ruler that anyone could hope for, which is why he almost certainly won't become king. Honestly, if I put my show-only lenses on, Daeron does give me a lot of Tommen Baratheon vibes from Game of Thrones, but with a dash more agency. I think the very best of this episode, though, was with Aegon. I love how this character is being portrayed. He has been mutilated and beaten down and at rock bottom. Add to that, he realizes how other people see him, which is expressed by Larys and reluctantly by Tywin Lannister. But more importantly, he understands how this will impact the way he's remembered. His choice to face the mutants who are marching his way to find Tywin Lannister is a great character moment even before the payoff. Aegon may have been a lot of things, but one thing an audience will always connect with is courage, when cowardness seems so obviously safer and the smarter choice even. I like the supporting characters here too. Tywin refuses to allow Aegon to face an army alone, especially since that army is seeking Tywin himself. He's the whole reason they're marching that direction, looking for him, going village to village. But also, I think some may see Larys as cowardly here, but he offers the line that if his king commands him, etc., meaning if Aegon commands Larys to follow him, Larys will follow him. I see Aegon not making this command as a grateful act. Larys would follow him and be reluctantly brave by his side, but Aegon doesn't put him in that situation. The self-reflection Aegon has experienced in this season, you could argue, would never happen if Larys didn't speak to him so honestly, and I look at Aegon letting Larys leave to be almost a sign of gratitude. Let me know in the comments if you disagree with that though. Now we get Aegon reclaiming his dragon in a few moments, but I'm gonna be honest, for me, honestly, I'm a book reader, but it still felt telegraphed, because I was like, there's just no way that they're going to kill Sunfire. That seems insane. There's no way you're going to take Aegon's dragon from him. Whether he's mutilated, can't fly anymore, doesn't really matter. I just know where this story is supposed to be going according to the source material. And if they kill Sunfire, I'm like, well, we are really just not even adapting Fire and Blood with obvious creative changes. We just threw the book away, like legitimately threw the book away. We don't care anymore. So I didn't think Sunfire was dead. Him coming back didn't shock me. But here's the real problem with this. It forces the audience to ask questions that you really don't want them wasting time asking, because you really don't want to waste time answering these questions. Those questions being, how did Sunfire come back to life? Was he even dead? Was he in a protective coma? These questions are forced on the audience, and no answer is going to make this story better, which means suggesting Sunfire was dead at all, in my opinion, was a mistake. They just as easily could have said Sunfire's body is missing, he's assumed to be dead, or perhaps poachers have scavenged his body to sell bones and teeth as souvenirs. But keep it a mystery as to what happened. I think we could have had this exact same scene and it would have worked just as well. The biggest issue here is the audience is going to ask how Sunfire survived if he actually came back from the dead, and the show might not answer this question at all. So then we're going to have an unintentional mystery, and those are never the good kind of mysteries. Either way, I think the moment itself is a great scene, and Aegon's speech was just as much of a payoff as seeing Sunfire come back, scarred and mutilated just like his bonded rider, Aegon. It truly is a great moment for the entire show, regardless of any other issues. Now, real quick, I want to touch on Ulf joining Ormond. This works, I guess, but I also would have liked to see how the communication was established, how this meeting was established, because it almost feels like this isn't the first time they've gotten together for drinks. But the thing is, we really didn't need to see Ulf slowly turning to the Greens, because the mistreatment of him from Rhaenyra and Daemon has been so blatant, almost laughably, that if anyone at your job treated you like that, it probably wouldn't take much for you to take the very first other job offer you found. I know people might enjoy Ulf, but I actually didn't need this scene as much as I think I needed this to be maybe Hugh Hammer, because I feel like Hugh has been established as someone with real stakes and has experienced true loss. So if he were to portray Rhaenyra, I think it would have been coming from a much more layered and emotionally charged decision. Okay, it's time to throw the scripts away. There's 2 moments in this episode that are totally, what the fuck are we even doing? And I can't spin either to make much sense. I'm going to start with the one that made me the least frustrated, and that's going to be Rhaenyra and Mysaria. This feels like a puzzle piece to a completely different puzzle than House of the Dragon. I don't know how it works. I don't know why this romance is here. I don't know how it complements the story. I don't even know how it complements the episode. I understand developing additional conflict between Daemon and Rhaenyra. I think Daemon's daughter being accused to be responsible for Jace's death, I think that's conflict enough. But Mysaria is trying to drive them apart. I don't understand the suggested that, it looks like they end up having some sort of sexual encounter, right? I don't know what that does for the story. And when it comes to sex or any type of romance or anything in that realm, this show does not know how to execute things like that emotionally feel organic, at least not to me. If you felt moved by this scene, please let me know in the comment section, or if you think I'm too much of an idiot to understand what's happening here, let me know about that in the comment section too. I don't like that these moments happen out of nowhere. It's just like Baela and Alan. It comes out of nowhere, is completely unearned. Like I said, and if you watch my thoughts on episode 5, I thought that Baela and Adam had maybe established something a little bit more. And with Baela and Alan, there's nothing that this show has offered to support that happening. There's nothing the show has offered to support Rhaenyra and Mysaria. If you were sort of like seed planting a potential blossoming romance here, fine. One random kiss in season 2 that also fell out of nowhere and unearned, that's not enough. I need to know emotionally what's going on with these characters. It may not do anything for the bigger story, fine. But does it at least do something for the individual characters? Because last season, when they kissed, it meant nothing. It had no further implication on the rest of the season. And I fear that's exactly what's going to happen in this situation too. Hopefully I'm wrong, and hopefully this really matters. But even then, it'll feel contrived because this moment wasn't earned. So if this moment has a bigger impact later, there's a way of doing this, and I don't think this is how you do it. That's all. The next part of this, we've got to focus on Aemond and Alice at Harrenhal, right? Remember the Harrenhal plot? And it's dragging, just like Daemon's Harrenhal plot dragged last season. But, I want to say something now that I can't believe I'm saying. If you're familiar with the books, well, the book, Fire and Blood or The Princess and the Queen, and you're familiar with the character Alicent, you know that Alicent has no reason to be in like 80% of the scenes that she's been in this season or last season. But if you read that book and you walked away and you just said, oh man, I wonder what, is Alicent somehow going to be involved in the Harrenhal plot? You would sound ridiculous. It would make no sense. How would she be involved in the Harrenhal plot? How would she end up in Harrenhal with Aemond? It sounds totally bonkers. And the reason why it sounds that way is because she is the subject of Rhaenyra. She is a hostage, and she gets sent to Harrenhal with exactly one guard, an assassin, who, by the way, gets murdered immediately because why? Aemond is so suspicious. And why is he suspicious? Because his head's all messed up and he's having really weird dreams. And he just happens to be having really weird dreams about having sex with his mother, Alicent. They did the same thing last season with Daemon and his mother. And you would think, okay, maybe they're trying to accomplish some sort of a parallel between Daemon and Aemond. And I think a lot of that is really clear. You can see that. But when you run that parallel with two men who are fantasizing about sexual encounters with their mothers, for one, Daemon's mother died when he was really young. He doesn't have that abandonment feeling. It's more of a loss. It's more of a, more of a grief than it is what Aemond might have with his mother, where it's just a total neglect, right? Because she neglected him in favor of Aegon, right? Maybe that's what they're trying to say. I don't know. I don't know what they're trying to say. I don't know what this does for the story. I don't know what Aemond having a dream about having sex with with Alicent does for the story. If you've got some ideas, please litter the comment sections with it. I would like to know better ideas than what I can arrive at. What I worry about is that these moments show up and then they are never addressed in the future. It'll just be something that we think about that never gets addressed in the future. It's kind of like Joffrey Lonmouth from season 1. That seemed like a really big deal that Kristen Cole beat this man to death in the throne room at basically at a wedding rehearsal dinner, right in front of the king, right in front of everybody. And there's just really no outcome from that. There's no consequence. And you can almost forgive season 1 in that situation, because from that season, that was episode 5, you go into episode 6 and there's a huge time jump. So then we just catch up with these characters later, and then he seems indebted to Alicent. So you just have to assume that, you know, he's in debt to Alicent because maybe she saved him or granted him mercy or pulled strings with Viserys to make sure that he wasn't punished for that. I don't know. But in this situation, I don't know what these sex visions are going to accomplish for the story. I don't know how they're going to have any influence over the finale episode. I don't think they're going to have any influence on season 4. Again, Alicent has no business being in Harrenhal. The idea that Rhaenyra would send one of her most valuable hostages to go find her own son, who might or might not have Vhagar. You're basically telling your hostage to go away, and the only thing that you have holding on to her is Helaena. So maybe that's what we're keeping this all glued together with, is that no matter what, Alicent's going to do what she can for Helaena. But mind you, this is the second son that Rhaenyra has asked Alicent to be complicit in their death, and I just don't think that's consistent with the character Alicent at all from season 1. And in season 2, when she becomes a character who's willing to sacrifice her son, I don't feel like that was really well earned either. I'm working on a bigger video for Alicent and where this story has really taken her, because I think there's so many inconsistencies. I think Olivia Cook has been really phenomenal, and whatever they ask her to do, she acts the hell out of that scene, and I really enjoy those moments. But this was just nonsense. So absurd that trying to take the scenes with them together is very difficult to take seriously. So she ultimately the assassin doesn't work because he gets killed. Alicent tries to poison Aemond, and then she sneaks out of Harrenhal, I assume. And then Alice finds Aemond poisoned, thinks he's an idiot, and I just have to assume that she'll make sure he's just fine, that he doesn't die or anything. But now he's got this additional animosity towards his mother. Okay, I guess that's the story we're telling. I don't know. Again, this is just a story that's inspired by Fire and Blood, so you can't take it too seriously based on the events from the book, and that's fine. I understand that. I've got to accept that. You've got to accept that. Everybody's got to accept that. This is not the Dance of the Dragons as established by George R.R. Martin. This is the Dance of the Dragons as inspired very loosely by Fire and Blood and The Princess and the Queen. I don't know. Let me know what you guys think in the comments section. God, I can't wait to talk to you about the finale. It'll be something. All right.